My friends, the Church in her wisdom gives us an entire month to celebrate the prerogatives and the virtues of the good Saint Joseph. Of course, his solemnity is March 19th, but the Church in her wisdom dedicates all of March to pondering the greatest saint after Our Lady. Indeed, Saint Joseph deserves what we call proto-dulia. First among the saints, among the category of dulia, after Our Lady, who uniquely deserves what we call hyperdulia. And when we're talking about devotion to Saint Joseph, we're talking about second only to Our Lady in terms of proximity to the Incarnation. What the fathers of the Church say about Saint Joseph is really extraordinary. St. Augustine, for example, said that Joseph is the true, though virginal and moral father of Jesus. He is, of course, not the biological father, but he is the true virginal and moral father. St. Thomas Aquinas said that God the Father put a miraculous spiritual bond in the heart of Jesus in relation to the heart of Joseph and in reciprocity, so that Joseph would see Jesus as a true son and be able to command him as a father should, and that Jesus would look to Joseph as a true father, although not a biological father. The 17th century French spiritual giant Bossuet says that indeed, in light of Joseph's humility, he would have to have a special grace from God the Father to exercise authority over he whom he knew was God the Son made man. But indeed, Joseph had that role. That's why we can conclude that no human being had more of the virtues of God the Father than Saint Joseph, after, of course, Jesus and Our Lady. But that's a remarkable statement. Why? Because Joseph would be a human icon of God the Father to Jesus. And as St. Thomas tells us, we are given graces according to our vocation. Guardian of the Redeemer is the title of the apostolic letter of St. John Paul II on St. Joseph. And indeed, when you are the guardian of the Redeemer upon whom all salvation depends, you have extraordinary grace, extraordinary gifts, extraordinary role. That's why Teresa of Avila, for example, gives the great St. Joseph challenge. She says, if you have not yet requested something of St. Joseph, challenge him. Ask him for something important in your life, and then witness the power of St. Joseph. She has said that there was nothing she asked for that St. Joseph did not grant her. St. Augustine, in understanding the mystical body, allows us to derive this principle, that what Joseph was to Jesus, Joseph is to you and to me. Meaning that as St. Joseph was the spiritual but true father of Jesus in the areas of protection and providing in all the dimensions of fatherhood while Jesus was on earth, so is Joseph to the members mystically united to Jesus, that is, the mystical body. That's why in the 19th century, the popes Pius and Leo declared Joseph to be the patron of the universal church. He is the spiritual father of the church and in a wider context of the entire world. So we have this intercessor, we have this spiritual father, someone we should meet, someone we should ask, and someone, as Teresa of Avila says, we should challenge in a certain way, not disrespectfully, but allowing our freedom to tap the powerful intercession of Joseph, whose intercession is more powerful than any other saint except Our Lady herself. Now, I want to make reference to two more recent apparitions that have included St. Joseph. The first are the apparitions of Our Lady of America. And you may be aware that Cardinal Burke, in a letter while he was Archbishop of St. Louis to all the bishops of the United States, said that these apparitions already have a canonical status of approval based on the practice and the expression of the previous bishop, Archbishop Paul Leopold, Archbishop of Cincinnati, to the religious sister from Ohio who received these messages in a predominant way starting in the 1950s. In these messages of Our Lady of America, which hold a beautiful message, an important message for our country, that is to encourage our bishops to publicly process a statue of Our Lady of America and to have that statue placed permanently in the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, for which Our Lady promises more spiritual graces, more graces of purity than even those found at Lourdes and Fatima, an extraordinary promise. But as per St. Joseph appears to Sister Mildred, the visionary, the Ohio religious sister, and says that first of all, he was sanctified in the womb a moment after conception, which tells us that he's not immaculately conceived, but a moment after he was baptized in the womb, somewhat similar to John the Baptist. Secondly, that Joseph did not commit venial sin. Thirdly, that St. Joseph never, well, as he puts it, that after Jesus and Mary, St. Joseph contributed to the redemption of the world more than any other creature. In fact, he's called a co-redeemer in these apparitions. How so? Because he knew that while his wife and ultimately his virginal son, Jesus, was going to endure the greatest suffering of all time, he as a father would not be there. And that suffering, that father's heart suffering that Joseph offered through his years, in itself constituted, after Jesus and Mary, the third greatest contribution to the redemption of the world. It's extraordinary. And also the need to look to St. Joseph as a model for fathers. In fact, especially on the first Wednesday of every month. Well, indeed, that's already part of tradition. Pope Benedict XV will talk about every Wednesday as a day especially dedicated to Joseph, but especially first Wednesdays. This is how we use the cycle of the week to remember things so important, and the importance of the patron of the Universal Church, that is St. Joseph. Finally, more recent church-approved apparitions, the apparitions of Itapiranga. These are apparitions in Brazil that have repeated approvals by the local bishop. St. Joseph has come in a series of apparitions. It's predominantly a series of Marian apparitions, but St. Joseph had a series of apparitions in succession where he calls us to honor his most chaste heart. And what's fascinating is that's also a theme that comes out of Our Lady of America, the revelation of the heart of Joseph as something that should be honored alongside the hearts of Jesus and Mary. Now, of course, not on parallel levels. The heart of Jesus is honored with latria. The heart of Mary is honored with hyperdulia. But a veneration of the heart of Joseph on the level of protodulia, but in union with the hearts of Jesus and Mary, confirmed both in Our Lady of America and in these new church-approved apparitions in Itapiranga. I strongly encourage you to look up both the messages of St. Joseph in the apparitions of Our Lady of America and the apparitions of St. Joseph in the messages and the apparitions of Itapiranga, Itapiranga, apparitions in Brazil. Ultimately, St. Joseph promises extraordinary graces for those who will consecrate themselves to his most chaste heart. I can say in my own way, I can testify to the power of consecrating family and person to the chaste heart of Joseph in a new level of entrusting ourselves to his intercession. Again, what Joseph was to Jesus, Joseph is to us. Let's use the month of March in a special way to tap the graces of this great saint. And if you're interested in a book called Meet Your Spiritual Father, you can go to motherofallpeoples.com, motherofallpeoples.com. Again, Meet Your Spiritual Father, a brief introduction to the life and devotion to St. Joseph. Many of the elements we've talked about today are brought forward, much more. Scripture, the Fathers, the medievals, the popes, and even private revelation. St. Joseph is the patron of the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. We have to invoke his intercession for ourselves, for the church, and for the world. Let's let this March be a time of special dedication and entrustment to the most chaste heart of Joseph. Thank you, and God bless.